This is a FANAUE fluid camera head. I was sent this to review for free. If you wanted to purchase one, it would cost you $50. They haven't paid me for my review, and my opinions remain my own. Alright, so the model name here is TD-01. In the packaging, we have some accessory screws, Allen wrenches, and the head itself. So this is kind of a two-part package. First of all, you have the TD-01, which is the actual head mount itself. And then you have this guy here, which is the BTC-50, which is basically your Arca quick release plate clamp. And typically you would probably use these two provided M5 screws to screw this guy down on top of the fluid head. But since the bottom of the fluid head also is an Arca quick release plate compatible setup, you could use this screwed down into something to grab the bottom of this guy if you wanted to do that as well. So the base of this guy also has a 3/8 socket there, and so you could hook it up to most 3/8 tripods with that. Now, the panoramic head itself has two adjustment knobs. The one on the side here will basically allow it to rotate 360, and then built into the handle is this guy here, and when that's released you have your tilting lock. So if you turn that in, it'll lock in a particular position. So this will move to any position in the tilt. It doesn't have any spring back force. You can basically set it and lock it, and then you can rotate around here unless you tighten this down, in which case they both lock. Now weight-wise, the head itself is 7.09 ounces, but if you add this guy in, there's another 3.1 ounces, and that's not even including the weight of the two screws that'll have to go in there, but basically it's about 10.2 ounces. So these two guys are M5 screws, and they include a little Allen wrench to put those in. So when these two pieces are attached together, including the screws here, the total weight is going to be 10.4 ounces, say. Well, 10.3, 10.4 ounces. In grams, that's 294, 293 grams. Now there are no instructions in the package, and so I'm not saying it's wrong to put this knob on the same size as that knob. It certainly works, but I think I'm going to reverse this because I want my quick release plate reverse knob on this side so I don't accidentally confuse it with this locking knob. Now there are different sizes. The knob size, or the kind of the knurls on the knob, are completely different sizes, so you know they have a definite different feel, but I figure since this is reversible, I'm just going to move it around to the other side. Alright, so it basically functions the same, but I think I prefer having those knobs on opposite sides. Just makes it a little easier to get to this knob, and it lessens the likelihood of accidentally flipping the wrong knob. This guy is rated up to a 7-pound camera. I'm using this 4.5-pound telescope to test it out. So one thing to note here is it does not include the Arca style quick release plate. You will have to provide your own plate on the bottom of the camera. So if you're using these Arca style plates, you've probably just installed one on each of the cameras you have, and you just leave them attached permanently. But if you don't already have one, this package does not include it, so you will have to have that as an additional purchase if you don't already have one. All right. So the pan locking knob really is just a locking knob. When you tighten it, you maybe a half a turn there, and it's basically locked. You loosen it just slightly, and then it pans very freely. You can see that thing just spinning even without me touching it. And so if you tighten it up just a little bit, it's basically locked. So there's no way to get kind of a smooth resistance to turning. It's either turns freely or it doesn't turn freely. There's not like an adjustability of how much resistance you want to turning. And so it's basically a lock or not lock on the pan there. Now on the tilt, if I loosen it, it's tilts very easily. There's no spring back force, so it's not trying to spring back or help me with the weight. If I tighten it a little bit, it's resistance to movement, but it's not super smooth. It feels kind of like it's grinding as it's moving. And if I tighten it down, you know, then it's just not going to move. So with this guy, which is a little front heavy, but not badly, and this is not, you know, it's just not a 7-pound camera. This is, you know, 4.5 here. It feels like this handle is too short to provide the amount of leverage I would like. So I would recommend this probably with a camera that doesn't have a long lens or something that's a little bit lighter weight, because it feels like it's, you know, I'm really having to work on this handle. It's not giving me enough mechanical advantage to be really smooth with it. And it really is, I think it's more of a lock or unlock. It doesn't really have a nice, you know, halfway point where you get a little bit of resistance to moving, but you can still move it pretty easily. So if you're looking for a pan tilt head that you can easily pan and tilt, when you have this thing unlocked, it, you know, it pans and tilts very easily. So with this particular mini square plate, there's no real retention here. It's either locked in or it's not. There's no screws that pop down to fit into these two holes here. So, you know, I put that on and I have to make sure this is locked in place before I let go of it. So there's no button to keep it from being accidentally released. So you want to make sure that's tightened down well. Now once it is tightened down, I don't really have any concern about going like that. It's definitely tight and locks down when you've locked it down. So if you need something where you can easily pan and tilt, and this amount of handle is enough leverage for you, I think this is a fine option. It's probably half the price of many other mini heads that I've seen. And the big difference there, I think, is that there's not fine grained control with the amount of resistance. You either have, you know, very easy, no resistance at all. You turn that knob a little bit and there's quite a bit of jerky resistance. You turn it any more and it's locked in place. So really it is a lock, unlock on both axes here. You don't have a lot of control. There's also no spring back, which sometimes you like, because sometimes you want to be able to point down or point far up without being fighting against a spring back. On the other hand, it means when you're pointing down, you have a lot of weight on this hand, and this handle is really short. You know, if the handle was twice as long, I feel like that wouldn't be a problem, but it is small and short. So I'd recommend this for smaller cameras that don't hang over the front as much. All right, so material-wise, most of this is aluminum. The screws here feel like they might be stainless. They're not clicking to the magnet super hard. So I believe the majority of this is going to be aluminum with some stainless parts. Possibly some of these little things are steel without being stainless, but most of it I think is stainless steel parts or aluminum. It looks very nice. It's built pretty well. You do have to assemble this top onto it if you want to use this grabber there. I like the fact that this has the Arca plates, you know, kind of dovetail built in addition to the 3/8 socket. As a fluid head, if you unlock this thing, you can certainly make very fluid pan and tilt motions. You know, it'll hold a camera. They say 7 pounds. I did 4.5 pounds, and you know, it held it fine, but when I was moving this way, the length of this arm isn't very long. And so if it was 7 pounds in a block arnett, that'd be fine. But if you have 7 pounds of lens in the front, this is a little too short for the leverage there. So I don't have any concerns that this guy wouldn't hold a 7-pound camera, but moving that camera around, you know, pan is no problem, but the tilt could be a little bit iffy. So I would recommend it for probably a smaller camera than that, at least certainly something with the center of gravity very centered without a long lens hanging over the front. Does not include a quick release plate. You have to provide your own quick release plate. On the plus side, the price is relatively low for this type of a fluid head. Now, the adjustability of the locks, I would call these locks more than like, you know, it's smooth action and then you turn it and it's locked, and you can release it and it goes to smooth action, but there's not a lot of friction control where you can have smooth action that doesn't kind of jerk while you're moving around. So I would say, you know, it locks these axes in place. It's not like you can adjust very finely how much friction the axes have. It looks like it comes disassembled because once you assemble it, you can't really get it back into the box. So you won't be able to store this guy in the box assembled